Oh, I'm wearing my Star Wars BB-8 shirt, everyone.
Oh,
very nice.
I'm wearing my Rebel Scum shirt.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Okay.
I've got my Alderaan temperature.
Perfect.
Such a good shirt. Oh my gosh, the week-long temperature, that one.
Yes,
Perfect.
yes.
The one that's like 10,000 degrees and then it's like nothing.
Yes, it's so. I love that shirt.
I want that shirt so bad. Oh man,
My
that's such a
favorite.
good one. Forecast. That's so great.
Welcome to a special crossover between Howe's Things, a podcast and radio show from the David A. Howe Public Library, and
This Endorian Life, a Star Wars podcast from the Radio Meanwhile Network, where we follow the Ewoks from Return of the Jedi through the Ewok TV movies, the 80s cartoon, and beyond. My name is Steve Rudd.
And I'm Amanda Smith from the David A. Howe Public Library.
and I'm Nick Gunning from both. Welcome, everybody.
From both!
Thank you.
You
The
know,
crossover.
Amanda, before we dive into... We're talking about Alphabet Squadron today, everyone, but before we dive into that...
Yes.
We were supposed to cross over earlier with that Ewoks graphic novel. Amanda, I know you read it, but you had a stomach bug
yes.
and we couldn't record. So I just need to know, as somebody who's not really familiar with the Ewoks, how did that graphic novel land for you?
To be fair, I was a little confused at
Yeah.
times. Part of me was like, I mean, I get that we're kind of just before Return of the Jedi and everything, and it's a lead up. But the storyline, I was just so unfamiliar with what was going on. I was like, it's like out of left
Yeah.
field.
Yeah.
It's kind of strange.
Steve, what is
Isn't that funny,
called?
though? Shadows of Endor. Yeah, and it's funny because since we've been following the story of the Ewoks, it's not
Yeah,
out
like,
of left field.
it
And then
makes
we
perfect
mentioned
sense.
that
Yeah.
like, yeah, like if you haven't been deep in the lore, like I was talking to somebody about this at work, and they were like, "Oh, hey, listen to your thing," and they're like, "You go real deep into the lore," and I'm like, "Yeah," to the stuff that nobody knows. You know, like we're deep as deep can be, and it made sense to us. Where other people are like,
Yeah. This
that
is what
would
we
be-
were talking about in that episode. It's like, unless you have watched the Ewok movies and like know the cartoon front and back, you're not going to have any idea what was going on. So thank you for confirming that, Amanda, that it was in fact a confusing experience.
No problem.
good.
Okay, well,
man.
this should be an easy bookmark because we've all been reading the same things, but let's open our books and see where our bookmarks are at.
Today, for our special May the 4th book club, we are discussing the novel Star Wars Alphabet Squadron, which came out in hardcover from Del Rey Publishing in June of 2019.
That's right. The novel was written by Alexander Freed, and aside from the trilogy of Alphabet Squadron books, he also wrote the Rogue One novelization, which I have in fact read. I didn't realize when we started Alphabet Squadron that I've read something of his before, but Rogue One novelization, Steve, you'll like this. He wrote Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic Lost Sons. It's a graphic novel set in that Knights of the Old Republic era.
Oh, yeah.
Amanda, you're into that too, aren't you? Knights of the Old Republic era?
I do like the KOTOR genre area. That
Yeah.
was pretty good. But I haven't read as much in terms of like the graphic novels as I did like that short, I say.
Yeah.
Like the 3 hardcover books that came out that were about Darth Revan. And
Oh, yeah, I've read that, yeah.
Yeah. So that was, I enjoyed those a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got into the video games pretty good for a fair period of time too. That was fun.
I've never done like the classic Knights of the Old Republic video game. Steve, you wasted some time on that, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. Hours.
It's not wasted time. That's not wasted time.
When it's instead of schoolwork, probably wasted.
All
I
right,
wasted a
that's
lot of
fair.
time.
He also wrote one called Battlefront Twilight Company, set in the Battlefront, set within those games.
I meant to read that book. That book.
Oh, really?
I can't remember if that's the first one or the second one. Those apparently were really good. They got rave reviews.
Yeah.
And I just never got around to reading.
This book, Alphabet Squadron, was released in hardcover, as Steve said. There's also an audiobook and then eventually a paperback. Characters from this book crossed over in the prequel comic TIE Fighter. So this was marketed as like a Marvel Publishing, Del Rey Publishing crossover because that TIE Fighter graphic novel ties into it. I have read that. I read that back when it came out. It's super hard to find now. It's out of print. But it was decent. Like, it didn't blow my mind or anything. But there was, I don't know if you guys were reading. Did you guys do the hardcover, or were you doing audio, or how'd you read the book?
I did mine on hardcover, though I had looked for it on audiobook, but I don't think our Libby has that book.
No, it doesn't, because I looked too. But the hardcover puts a few pages of the issue like into the book, but it was so confusing because it wasn't where it fit in the story. There was no like, and now here's a sample. I thought that was really odd.
Yeah, I listened to it. I did get the book, so I have it.
Okay.
But I was so afraid of potentially not finishing it that I listened to it on the audiobook, and I just breeze through it. It's like, I don't know, it's like 15 hours or something like that. So it was like nothing.
But you were wild about the reader, right? What didn't you say that it didn't distinguish the character voices very well?
Yeah, I think this reader had a lot of trouble doing different voices, and she ended up doing lots of accents for people to kind of differentiate. And I thought that went really bad. And she,
sad.
And she read like pretty much like this all the time. And then when it was a boy, it was like, I'm a man. And it's like, wait, is this the narrator or is this the character?
I wish I could remember the narrator's name, but I read the Claudia Gray book, Master and Apprentice, which is an Obi-Wan Qui-Gon book. Amanda, I feel like we've talked about this on a Star Wars episode in the past, but the reader on that was amazing. Like, I would have believed that they got Liam Neeson to drop in and just do the Qui-Gon stuff. I mean, it was flawless. It was amazing.
So this one was Saskia Mariveld.
Okay.
I don't know if she's done other stuff. When she went at the very end, when they kind of like announced themselves.
Yeah.
I thought that voice was better, and I was like, she should have just read
like
in
the
that
character
voice.
Voices?
In a little bit too.
That's
yeah,
too bad.
She does what I do, where she puts on her radio voice, and it's like she should have just relaxed, read the book, and then it would have been
well. Yeah, better. I mean, an audiobook reader really can kind of make or break it. But anyway, this book, Alphabet Squadron, is the start of a trilogy. So it's got the tie-in TIE Fighter graphic novel, and then two books follow. One called Shadowfall, and one called Victory's Price. I love the cover art for these. Like that sort of blues and oranges, just almost like a 70s vibe, which makes sense. Considering the origins of Star Wars, but I really like the looks of them. Let's dive into the book. Steve, can you hit us with a little bit of a plot detail here?
Yeah. On the brink of victory in a brutal war, 5 New Republic pilots transform from hunted to hunters in this epic Star Wars adventure. Set after Return of the Jedi, Alphabet Squadron follows a unique team, each flying a different class of starfighter as they struggle to end their war once and for all. The Emperor is dead. His final weapon has been destroyed. The Imperial Army is in disarray. In the aftermath, Yuriko Quell is one of thousands of defectors from her former cause living in a deserter's shantytown until she is selected to join Alphabet Squadron. Cobbled together from an eclectic assortment of pilots and starfighters, the 5 members of Alphabet are tasked by the New Republic General Hera Syndulla herself. Like Yurika, each is a talented pilot struggling to find their place in a challenging galaxy. Their mission, to track down and destroy the mysterious Shadow Wing, a lethal force of TIE fighters exacting bloody, reckless vengeance in the twilight of their reign. The newly formed unit embodies the heart and soul of the rebellion. Ragtag, resourceful, scrappy, and emboldened by their most audacious victory in decades. But going from underdog rebels to celebrated heroes isn't as easy as it seems, and their inner demons threaten them as much as their enemies among the stars. The wayward warriors of Alphabet Squadron will have to learn to fly together if they want to protect the new era of peace they've fought so hard to achieve. Part of a Marvel and Del Rey crossover event, Alphabet Squadron is the counterpart to Marvel's TIE Fighter miniseries, which follows the exploits of Shadow Wing as they scheme to thwart the New Republic.
Okay, so the publisher's summary there really sort of lays it all out. So let's get into it right away. I think, why don't we just start with just a basic thumbs up, thumbs down. How do we feel about this? Amanda, you first. What do you think?
I enjoyed it. Like, I know some of the other Star Wars ones that we've read that have been newer have been a little harder to get into. Yeah. I'm thinking back to our last year's podcast of the High Republic.
I'd rather not. That
was there. Well, I kind of went into it with a little bit of trepidation because I was thinking, please don't be laid out like the other one was. Yeah. But I enjoyed the way that they presented it. I liked the characters and just how they blended them together. I mean, I felt like some stuff was just reiterated a little too much, but at the same time, the plot line I enjoyed, and I liked the diversity of the characters and just how they kind of worked well together over time, but also there was that tension, friction of having to overcome the differences between each crew member. So I liked it. I am in the midst of the second book, and I'm curious how they'll develop it from there and solve some of the different issues that have come up.
Oh, so you went right on to book 2.
Oh, don't say anything.
That's
I won't spoil.
That's a ringing endorsement. Would you say, wait, Steve, Amanda and I have been on a Star Wars journey together, not unlike our own, where we end up reading a lot of bad Star Wars books together because we did. What did we do? Last year was, I don't even remember which of the High Republics, but before that was that Alan Dean Foster book, The Approaching Storm.
Oh, yes.
Which was set in the prequel era. Also not good. So it's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while since we've read a good one. I have mixed feelings about this one. I think this is one where the premise, I think, is really intriguing. I love the idea of really seeing the nitty-gritty of, like, what happens immediately after the battle for Endor. And I gotta say, they talked about the battle for Endor so much, would it have killed them to just say Ewoks once? I just...
They didn't.
Just mention...
I was surprised.
I know, every time. There was not even like a, thank goodness for those indigenous little teddy bears who saved our lives. But no, we never got it. But I really liked the idea of, because the movies, it's like, okay, they've destroyed the second Death Star, they've killed the Empire. Now there's no more Empire. That's it. That's gone. It's just kind of like an easy fix. And so I like in this book, they're like, I mean, yeah, you did those things, but there's all these Imperial remnants left, and like, that doesn't just magically go away. And I liked the reality of them dealing with, what do you do with these people who were just kind of like foot soldiers? Like, they're not evil, they're just like people who were part of the Empire and now like need jobs, and how does that play out in a post, the rebellion wins world? So I really liked that. I liked Yurika. I liked quite a few of the characters. I think my biggest criticism is in book 1. So within the book, it's structured, book 1, book 2, book 3. And the first book of just kind of getting everybody in place, I felt like I would have preferred a book that jumped us right into the action and maybe fleshed that out with some flashbacks, to kind of show how people got there. But I was a little ready for the part 1, book 1, to be over with. But ultimately, I think I'm in a place where I'm like, yeah, I liked it. It was decent. How about you, Steve? Where are you at?
I didn't really like this book.
Okay.
As I was listening to it, I kind of like recorded things down on my phone. I recorded probably a little bit too many things down that I really thought missed the mark. I like how the book did kind of, like the diversity of the characters, right? Each person was very different, flew a different ship, and I like that. They were like, they kind of embodied the quality of their ship.
Yeah.
But I thought the whole time, I was like, is this book about Quell, or is it really about other people? Right? It very quickly kind of fell apart as being a book about Yurika Quell. And I found myself going, man, I want more stuff on Will Lark. He's a more compelling character, but I just felt Quell's character, she didn't work. On paper, maybe, but if you talk about how, the kind of the breaking apart of the Empire reminds me a lot of World War II, when the Japanese army surrendered, but there were so many isolated islands that they interpreted certain messages like the war is over, we surrendered, Japan surrendered, as like propaganda. So they decided not to surrender. So we were still fighting with Japanese soldiers on isolated islands, even when Japan had already surrendered, right? So I kind of equate it to that, right? That's the closest thing in our history like that. And so when somebody says like, oh yeah, I defected, you didn't defect, you surrendered. You like, you lost when you change sides after your team loses. Basically, you're not defecting, you're surrendering. And so her character just did not swing a home run for me. I was just like, man, she claims she pities the rebels. She couldn't answer that she was ready to fire upon her own people. Just as the story progressed, she kept saying things and doing things that I was like, that's not somebody who's a rebel, who sold out, right? She said originally, oh yeah, I wanted to, but then I just never got around to it. And it's like, she she talked about the people that came after her when she got to that camp, right?
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
like, oh yeah, those people, they're so late. And I'm like, you just got there before them.
But see, I like that. I feel like that was a strength. I didn't bump up against this character at all. I liked her quite a bit, and I could have done with a little bit more depth and insight. But I sort of feel like, you know, on the flip side of what you're saying, I think a little bit of her opportunistic streak, or the way that she was kind of, I don't know, like rolling with the punches and kind of, I don't know, sometimes kind of felt like going with the victor. I felt like that's what made her, to me, kind of a compelling character. Amanda, what did you think, character-wise, on Yurika?
I did find it a little hard, and I think I'm more inclined to agree with Steve in that, in some ways it was, you got to the end of the war, and then all of a sudden, you've decided to switch sides. As opposed
Now's
to
a good time. Yeah.
defect. Yeah. Well, we tried
Switching
that.
to the winners. That's what it's doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And I can see how, especially, that would breed a lot of animosity and difficulty in trusting with the side that you have switched to, because if you switch to the very end, it becomes a question of motivation of, well, did you do it truly because you were planning on defecting?
Or is it kind of a numbers game, right? It's where are the chips about to fall? I'm going to try to be on that side.
Right. And I thought, I got very frustrated with her tendency toward not integrating with her squadron, of just maintaining constant distance and being like, oh, well, all right, they're bonding, great. But I don't need to do any kind of connection with them because they're good.
Yeah. And then being confused, like, why don't they like me? It's like,
right. Like,
the probe droid told you to do it, for crying out loud.
I love that droid. I love that droid.
Yeah, like, so
this twisted torture droid who's now this counselor.
Yeah.
Kind of
I loved
character.
it.
I thought that was a great character, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
so
they take a little torture droid and turn it into Deanna Troi. I like it.
Yeah.
Just with a darker past, I think.
Right, yeah, a little bit of darkness there. But do you think that, like, the flaws in her character, I mean, do you think that's bad writing, or do you think that's the way the character was intended to be, as kind of a problem?
I think it was bad writing. I think they tried to make a character like Finn, right? Finn made sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's there. He decides not to shoot.
Right.
Quell kept saying, well, I did my part. And then we find out at the end, spoiler alert, if you're listening to this, we're going to talk about
Yeah, that's true.
end.
We're going to have to,
Doing it right now. She was responsible for the destruction of, what was that planet? The one. Yeah, so she was responsible for the destruction of Necronis. We're talking billions of people.
Yeah.
And they're all like, oh yeah, just come on, fight for us. And it's like, yo, that is not, you're not a defector. You're not even a surrendering. You're a prisoner of war at that point. Like, we're talking, could you imagine if, like one of the German generals of World War II was like, I surrender. They put him in prison.
Yeah.
But they're like, no, you know what? We still got some of your people to mop up. Why don't you just command our people to do it? No, that doesn't make sense. And so for me, I could not reconcile that to her character. I would say that would be the most foolish thing. You'd want to get information out of her and put her away, put her on trial, right? Do the right thing, as far as you did all these things and then you surrendered when you realized you were sorry for it. Not like, not beforehand. Like, Finn would have not fired during that mission, would have not destroyed, would have chosen not to.
I see.
That's
attack. Fair. That's a
because
fair
that's what he did, and that's why I think his character was more compelling in that manner. That he was like, we saw that he was really struggling,
like seeing the struggle. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for her it was, I killed all those people, I did my part, but I felt bad, but I can't shoot my own people, and I really don't care about the rebels. I don't pity them. I don't like them. I just pity them. I was like, you're not winning me over here.
Have either of you read any of the old X-Wing series?
I did.
Did you?
Oh, like Rogue Squadron?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not. My brothers were really into those, and I was curious to see like what kind of crossover there would be between that period of writing and this, because I mean it deals with some of the same stuff, like just right after the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
I almost said false, but is in its collapsing stage.
Right.
In whatever element that is. But yeah, I was curious to see what the crossover was like, and just differences in writing style.
So what do you think, Steve? How does that compare to some of the old X-Wing books?
Geez, I read it when there was 4. When the X-Wing series
Wow.
was 4 books.
So
I think now there's like
so your
8.
information's out of date.
So
Okay.
I mean, I remember. I'm pretty sure it was one of the main characters was Wedge. Was it Wedge Antilles?
Yeah, I think it's Wedge.
I think so.
Yeah.
And like
It was
Corran
Wedge.
Horn?
Yeah, and it was some other stuff. There was some other connections between other books as well.
Yeah.
During that
Well,
time.
like I Jedi, for example, with Corran Horn is kind of a
Okay.
link between the X-Wing series and the Jedi Academy series, which
and the Jedi Academy series. Okay.
yeah, the Jedi Academy series,
true.
and that actually, I was thinking of the Jedi Academy series earlier when you were talking about the idea of there still being isolated islands post World War II where people are still like fighting a good fight. Because that's kind of the plot of the Jedi Academy trilogy, where there's this secret Imperial base, and they have not gotten the memo, and so you know, like they're going whole hog, like Empire is everything, and that's kind of the crux of that. But Corran Horn is the one who sort of brings the Jedi element into the X-Wing series, and I'm trying to remember, do we have a straight up Jedi in this story?
Not at all.
Yeah.
This
they're
one, yeah, not at all.
Very loosely, but I don't
Yeah.
think we ever see any Jedi or anything. We go to the Jedi Temple for a brief period, but then there's
Yeah.
no actual Jedi that show up.
Right. And so that's an interesting thing to do. One of the books that was kind of coming off of the Solo movie, it was Ray Carson. I think it's called Most Wanted. But that's another one where there's no Jedi element, and it's when you're critiquing a Star Wars book to not have a Jedi element in it, I think that sort of like throws a wrench into how you rate these things. How do you guys feel the absence of a Jedi character either improved or detracted from the story? What do you think, Amanda?
You know, I think it kind of works because I think if you always have a Jedi character, the tendency is to have that be the dominant character,
Yeah.
and then the audience just continues to follow them. And it can be hard to develop other characters and maintain the interests and kind of build. And since this one does focus on different characters, I think it worked not to have a Jedi just kind of dominate
Yeah.
that position.
And even just logistically, I guess at this point in time, it's Luke, right? I mean, it's Luke,
That's
and
true.
then that's basically it. So,
Yeah.
you know, but I don't really even think they played much with like, oh, is this character force sensitive? You know, I think we got maybe some tendrils of that, but that wasn't really much of an element in there. Who besides Hera? So Hera, who's like the commander of Alphabet Squadron, obviously primary character in Star Wars Rebels. What other screen scene characters are in this book besides Hera?
Oh.
Is it just her?
I think so.
I think so too.
And she mentioned talking to Admiral Akbar, but he never actually shows up
Yeah.
in the book itself.
Yeah.
Chas talks about meeting Jin
That's right.
Oh, that's
yeah.
right.
when they were
Yeah.
in prison together, I think, right? And that's when it was, when they were like
Yeah.
in prison.
But
I
I
thought that
kinda-
was really cool.
I did too, actually. I thought, because from their perspective, it was like Jin was really the hero, like of the rebellion, because she's the one who made it possible. And I thought that was such a smart touch, because, you know, these are like essentially like espionage agents, you know what I mean? So like they would see the value and like appreciate what Jin brought to it.
I didn't like that.
Oh, you didn't?
I wrote Jin did everything that mattered, because that's what they said. She says Jin did everything that mattered. And I was like,
Well, but
that's up for debate.
Yeah.
Jin didn't do everything that mattered. Everyone did it. And that's what's so great about the rebellion, that everyone does their part, right?
I think the point the character was trying to make, that she was the one who like got the ball rolling by taking that step. But I think
That's true,
I
yeah.
think that's interesting to note. Once I realized that Alexander Freed wrote the Rogue One novelization, I thought that was a nice bit of connection there, you know, because
cool.
like, are there characters who stood out to you guys?
You know, I did want to know more about like Will Lark's backstory, and I know we got some of that, but it would be interesting to kind of delve into his character. I'm still like, even though I'm into the second book, I'm still quite curious about Kairos and just what the backstory is there, because we keep getting all of these subtle references and hints here and there, but nothing's fully developed yet to know who is this person. Like, is she trustworthy? Is she not? Is there more? Well, obviously, there's more there than he's developing, but yeah. So a lot of questions there. And then Nath, we've gotten some information again, but he's like this slippery pirate, and all I can like picture in my head is, did you guys play Jedi Starfighter when it came out?
I started it. I never finished it.
I have played it, but I won't be able to pull a reference from it.
Oh, all right. Well, there's a pirate character in that who's called Nim, and so like whenever Nath
never
is
got there
speaking,
yet.
I just keep seeing Nim
Okay.
and hearing Nim's voice. So it's just an interesting crossover. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm curious to see, because again, we get references from Nim being kind of this questionably shady character with his own agenda, and he seems like just the mercenary type who's just in it for the money. But is that really true, or what's there? So yeah, I think mainly though Kairos is the one that I'm like, who are you and what's going on?
Yeah, I was waiting for the breakout on Kairos, right? I mean, they kind of did Will, Chas, you know, they even talked about like their old pilots that died, like Satanique and one of the other ones. Like they even talked about them more than Kairos, even though Kairos was in the book the entire time from, you know, cover to cover. I thought that was the most mysterious of all the characters.
Yeah.
You know, wasn't Kairos the one that let Quell go when she was trying to steal the X-Wing?
Oh yeah. Yeah, she was gonna kill her, and then Quell's like, no, I'm trying to make it right. And she's
I'm trying to make it right. And Quell's like,
make it right.
All right, make it right. And I was just like, yo, what? Like, let's go back to that. That happened, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
so it's like you talk about trusting your pilots. That one trusted you, so she should have hung on to that. I think the fact that like when she got back, hey, why did you let me go? Why did you let me? You know, why did you let me do that? Because I could have just run. I could have just run away and then never come back. And so I don't know. For me, there was just a lot of things that were really good ideas. I thought the conversation between Blink and Will, that was really cool.
Oh, that was interesting.
That was really good.
What
And,
specifically stood out to you?
well, it was when they were making fun of Will for just talking
Yeah.
to his ship, you know, and then he like opened a channel and was like, you know, hey, you know, oh, it's so hard, this and that. And he's just kind of talking, and all of a sudden a voice comes over, and this voice is talking to him, and he said, you know, and the narrator was like, it took him a while to realize that this was a TIE pilot talking to him. The TIE pilot was like, you're not going to survive this. The maw is going to swallow you, you know, kind of like grinding him down, you know?
Yeah.
And then they like cut the transmission. But I thought that was really cool. Like a point where like they were talking to each other,
Yeah.
you know, one side of the space cloud on the other side of the space cloud kind of thing, you know? I thought that was a really cool touch in the story that happened.
No, I agree. I feel like that stands out, and I think one of the things that's nice about that is that you don't get a lot of that. You don't get a lot of sort of like crossing like that and seeing it from the different sides, the different perspectives, you know, particularly within like, you know, essentially like enemies or former enemies, you know, just dealing with the reality of the situation. That was an element that I really liked about it because it made Return of the Jedi's kind of storybook ending feel like, okay, but like if it was real, there'd be all these loose threads. There'd be all these gray areas. And I really liked having a book that was devoted to that.
Yeah, it added a lot more depth, I felt like.
Yeah.
Kind of a very human quality to it, as opposed to just being like, these are the good guys, and we only follow their story arc, and these are the bad guys, and we really don't like them. Because then we get the idea of these are people too. Yeah. And we get both sides of the story, which I thought was an interesting development.
I do too. And I feel like part of the reason why maybe I liked Yurika a little bit more than you guys did was I guess I kind of appreciated that she's not great, because I think typically in Star Wars you're really given like kind of all good or all bad. And I guess you could make the argument that like, well, Han's a smuggler, and you know, he and Lando start in it because of their own like desires and needs and stuff, but they're just so quickly like these golden heroic characters that I kind of like seeing somebody who's just kind of like meh, you know. And I think particularly
I'm hopeful that in the following books I'll see more development with Yurika. Yeah. And it will be a more, as opposed to like this hard and fast closed
a one-off doesn't work as a one-off.
Yeah, I see that.
In the sense of growth, I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for that kind of redemptive quality to play in, and I'm hopeful that will go in that direction.
Yeah, well, that's why it's kind of hard, I think, to rate something that is written as part one of a trilogy, you know, because like all of the complaints that we had about this book, by the time we get to the end, they might be irrelevant, you know, like once you've seen the whole picture, it might be like, yeah, okay, you know. So and on the one hand, I want to kind of like reserve a little bit of judgment, but on the other, I mean, I kind of agree, Steve, that there are some things that just like didn't quite fire on all thrusters in a way that I wanted them to.
For me, I think like, I'm curious as what you guys think of the ending, because I think that it's supposed to be a twist ending, and it, for me, it was not. Like, you know, like I even wrote in my notes, I was like, what the heck was the point of chapter 7, which was about Tinkertown and stuff like that? And then there was like, and then chapter, like, you know, 15 was about Tinkertown as well, and whatever his name, Devon, yeah. And then the very end of the book, I was like, oh my gosh, here we are, we're back at. So I was like, oh, maybe this is really important. And they were like, and Devon is Major Keys, and I was like, oh, you mean like that guy that like let Quell go? Like that was their twist? Like I was like, who cares? I don't even care about that guy. Like, you know, like I thought like it would have been cooler if he was if this Devon guy was somebody else, or maybe if Devon was that Jedi. That's what I was expecting. Maybe it was a Jedi in hiding, and it was going to be weaved into the story.
That would have been cool.
Like, that's when I was just like, all right, this book, it's not a one-off. This stuff really doesn't. You got to go into the second book. It's like they broke one book up into 2 books. So, you know, because then I feel like all that character development is going to happen, or it's going to be, you know, finished in the second book.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Well, I think that's something like, again, to use like the Jedi Academy trilogy or even like the Zahn trilogy, the thing that I feel like the reason why those books stand the test of time is because, yes, they're a trilogy, and yes, they're meant to be one like interwoven story, but each individual book you probably could read by itself, and it would still work. You know what I mean? And I don't know that this one does. This is much more like a serialized thing.
Yeah, it's much more knit together. I know Steve had mentioned the ending, and even though, I mean, I feel like I kind of saw it coming, because they had kept mentioning Keys throughout the story, and I was like, when is he going to just suddenly appear? Because surely he's not really dead. I guess I didn't see him connected with Devon, and kind of like what you had said, Steve, the first chapter that showed up and we're in Tinkertown, I was like, where are we? And what in the world is going on? Who are these?
I didn't know when it was either. That was the thing.
It was just a strange, all of a sudden, stop this current story and start this new little mini story. It was very confusing.
I always kind of wonder if that kind of thing is like a drop-in. You know, if this reveal was going to be a later book or something like that, and they were like, no, we need this sooner, you know, so we can have a twist. I wonder. Oh, that could be. You know, because you're right. It does feel like, and now here's a short story set in this universe that's not super connected. So maybe it was something like that.
Sort of like the hardcover with the graphic novel kind of inserted in the middle.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of like that.
Just a little confusing. Just a little confusing.
Like the wrong part of the graphic novel.
Yeah.
Right.
You're like, what?
And like not at the beginning, or I don't know. That's so strange. So strange.
But with the ending itself, again, I'm curious to see how they develop that, because I feel like that'll be very pivotal to see what Erica's character is going to look like when she finally realizes, oh, he's not dead.
Yeah.
To see like where they take it in that direction, if she'll be like, oh, all right, switch sides, which I very much doubt, but I'm curious to see how they deal with the internal struggle that she has knowing that he's still alive.
I agree, and that kind of got me to a place where, I don't know, in the tail end of this book, I was just like I said at the top, like I'm like, okay, fine. I wasn't really like, oh, I have to read book 2. I feel like, while I kind of agree with you, Steve, that like that's didn't feel like a super important character. I felt like the reveal and the level of twist did feel kind of like a game on kind of an ending, and I did like that, and it did kind of make me want to pick up book 2.
Yeah. So even though that graphic novel was like, I don't know, 4 pages.
Yeah.
I even had to point out an issue with that. Well, here's the thing.
You're the worst.
Give me some.
It's Star Wars Day, Steve.
The reason why Shadow of Endor was so good is because there was attention to detail.
Oh, sure.
Right? Even down to the gold. We'll pray to the golden one, and they'll tell us what to do. You know, like things like that. Like this one, grandmother, you know, the Imperial general or commander.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She's talking about, the separatists or rebels or whatever they call themselves. And I was just like, wait a minute, what? Like, we've established that they're the rebellion at this point. Like, separatists happened 30 years ago with, like, when it was the separatists and the... but I was just like, come on. Come on.
All right, so mixed bag. Amanda's more on the positive all-in side. Steve's on the, well, on page 48, they forgot to side of things.
So true.
So,
Did you also make grammatical corrections as you went?
yeah, could you? Let me
no,
get you.
it was audiobook, so I couldn't do
Oh,
that. So
too
there was
bad.
no-
Well, you're gonna have to get the hardcover and start because
Yeah.
we need,
I
we
have
need
it.
more complaints.
I'm gonna start tonight.
Yeah, do it. Give me pages by this weekend. All right, here's my question. I know, Amanda, that you've run out and pick up book 2. Are you ride or die for this trilogy? Like, are you going to make it all the way through to the end?
I think it'll depend on what they do with book 2, because like you had said, the ending for book 1 made it more compelling in some ways to see how it developed with book 2. And so I think somewhat similarly, it'll depend on what they do through book 2, but also what the ending looks like, whether or not it'll carry me into book 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Steve, wait, hold on. Wait a minute. I just have to see. This is the thing that I get stuck on. You could live in a world where you've read 2 books in a trilogy and didn't finish a trilogy. I could never do that. You'd be comfortable with that, Amanda?
I think it, like I said, it depends. Well, so here's what to do. I would cheat, honestly.
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't like. I would be like, all right, tell me the cliff notes on what happens in book 3.
Okay.
And then, depending on how they did book 3 and what the ending looked like, I might go and pick it up just because I'm like, oh, all right, I didn't see that. But then if it kind of followed what I thought they might do, I might just let it go and be like, all right, that's okay.
Yeah. Okay. I guess I'm at a place where, like, I'm amenable to reading book 2. You know, I didn't rush out. First of all, Amanda beat me to our copy of Alphabet Squadron. I just want to I put it on hold. Awesome. I put it on hold, but Amanda pulled it off the shelf and didn't check it out. I'm just saying. But book 2, I know you've already got, Amanda, but I wasn't in a rush to go and grab it. But it's like a thing where if you guys were like, hey, we're going to read book 2 and reconvene in a month, I would do it. You know what I mean? Like, that's where I'm at. If I had a good reason to read it, I would, and it'd be fine, and I'd probably enjoy it, and I might still. But I'm not.
Well,
That's not the top of my list. Yeah.
If I picked it up in 3 months, I would have forgotten book 1 and been like, I have to go back and review book 1.
That's true. Steve,
so,
I feel I know the answer.
The steam going.
Yeah, that's wise.
I'm gonna get out of this series sooner than your
okay. So you're not,
and I'm gonna.
You're one and done.
Get out now when I should.
Okay. All right.
I know I finished book 3, but I want to quit the series. Can I do that?
Yeah.
See, it doesn't.
So what's going to be your next venture then, or don't you know yet?
I have a couple books on my shelf from Star Wars that I wanted to read. There was one that I was looking at. You know, I even thought about reading the Timothy Zahn series again.
Oh wow!
See,
that scares me. I don't know if it would hold up.
Well, that's why I want to do it, right? Because I remember it being amazing, and then I've read Timothy Zahn's recent stuff and was like,
I hate
really
it.
not that good.
The new Thrawn stuff, no.
Thrawn stuff is like, dude,
no.
Oh man, I even when I read the Tarkin.
Tarkin.
When I read the Tarkin series, I was just like, oh, this is what I wanted, but it just wasn't written as well. I thought.
I see.
I don't know. I have very little time, so I want my books to be like, grand slams.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm just setting the bar too high, but I thought Grand Moff Tarkin is such a mysterious character. Like that should be like really mysterious and evil, and they just kind of made him like he was brilliant. And then what Thrawn was just like, he's just weird. They tried to make him like he was like cunning and psychotic, but it was just like, nah, he's just weird and he's blue.
Those didn't connect with me either.
It didn't. So I'm curious to go back because I have that. I remember it being really good. Maybe
Dangerous.
if they do frustrating, I'll just go through the Han Solo trilogy again.
Oh, that's good. AC
like
Crispin, I'm sure that will stand up.
That one for me.
That does bring you to my final question here, guys, though. It is May the 4th. It's Star Wars Day. I'm wondering, outside of this book, do you have any other Star Wars related plans?
Well, I'm reading First Blood. It's a graphic novel that we've got from the library. It's kind of like Kanan's origin story, and
I've read
he
that.
starts out as a Padawan. Okay, yeah. So I'm going through that because it came in recently, and I was flipping through it. And ordinarily, I'm not a graphic novel person, but I like his character from Rebels, and I liked just the layout, and I'm interested in the backstory.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, Rebels doesn't give a great deal of his backstory.
True.
They just allude to it. So I was like, oh, that'd be interesting to see, like how he did the Padawan and then went from there. So I'm doing that, and then I'm looking forward to Kenobi coming out.
Yeah, that's soon. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is soon. So I'm hopeful and a little uncertain, just because I feel like they've been sort of hit or miss with their different Star Wars series.
That's for sure.
Like Mandalorian, I really liked. Boba Fett, I haven't even finished yet.
Yeah.
But I just haven't been able to get through it. I'm like, okay.
You could not, and you'd probably be just as
That's
happy.
true. That's true. I mean, it's worth it for the Mandalorian content. On the last episode of How's Things, Malik was our guest, and Malik said that he loves Boba Fett. It was just like okay with Mandalorian. He was like, yeah, Mando, whatever, but like Boba Fett was amazing, and I was just like, what?
Oh, wow.
What?
Wow,
I just couldn't.
that's
He was only in like 2.5 episodes.
I know,
of the
it's
show.
true. I know. Yeah, blew my mind. Even though I've been stung by the High Republic like one too many times. There's a manga series that I've heard really good things about, and I've liked all of the recent Star Wars manga. Rebels, Leia, what was another one? Oh, The Lost Stars. That's a few years back. But I would like to read that. And then we've been kind of slowly with our son watching through Star Wars Resistance, which is one of the more recent animated series set adjacent to the Star Wars saga, and season 1 is like, I want to say it's lead up to Force Awakens, and then season 2 is lead up to The Last Jedi. It's more of a little kid show, I think, than Rebels or Clone Wars, certainly, but it is enjoyable, and there's intriguing stuff about it, so we're going to try to pound through that. What about you, Steve?
For me, my work, we celebrate special days like Earth Day,
okay.
like fun things and stuff like that, so they're really banking on me for May the 4th to kind of take control of that. And,
I think you should.
You know, and they were like, "Oh, what should we do? Like, we should put this on in the lounge." And I was like, "No, we should just put Star Wars on." They're like, "Oh yeah, that's a good. We could do that." And I was just like, "How is that not the first thing?"
Right. That seems.
But no, like
obvious.
they're really. So they're. I mean, they trust me to think of fun games and ideas and. You know, I'm not going to name drop, but one of them did say that their favorite Star Wars movie was The Last Jedi.
Ooh.
And
That's
rough.
That's a choice.
She stands behind it. You know, I may have been a little rude and said that she was completely wrong.
Huh.
But
subtle as always.
I'll have to ask. Yes, I did it with cunning, kindness. And tact, but no, I'm the expert. You're not. So, but I'll have to ask her why, and she'll have to tell me. But,
defend herself.
So yeah, they're really banking on me to do all kinds of fun Star Warsy stuff, and I thought about baking some like Wookiee cookies or something.
Oh, nice. My coworker got me a Star Wars baking book. I was just gonna say, you should look up
I have that.
Yes.
I have that. So I'll have to.
Okay, well, I mean, it sounds like good things in the works.
Oh, yes.
All around. Okay. Well, thanks, everybody, for joining us for this special crossover episode. Next, here on How's Things, it's going to be a Lonely Hearts Book Club. That's where we run a report, pull a book from our stacks that's never, ever circulated before. And we try to figure out why. We try to figure out what went wrong. So that's what we're going to be doing next on How's Things.
On This Endorian Life, we'll be covering episode 2B, Princess Nisa, with special guest Eric Mickles.
Hey, that's going to be a good time. That's going to be a good time.
I'm looking forward to that.
All right.
He's going to have a great take on that episode. I just know it's going to be the worst one.
Probably.
Okay? Yeah,
probably.
It's going to be the worst one. He's going to.
Yeah, season 2 of the Ewoks cartoon's been rough for us, Amanda. It's been it's been a rough time, but.
If it's anything like the comic book we read, then how that would be the case.
You wish it was that well structured. No, that's
it's
all right then.
Way worse.
That's not the case here.
Way worse.
Yep. Okay, well, I guess that's gonna do it for the How's Things This Endorian Life crossover. We'll see everybody next time.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Amanda.
Thanks for having me.
Today, for our special May the 4th book club, we are discussing the novel Star Wars Alphabet Squadron, which... Oh, jeez. Don't laugh at me. All right. Today, for our special May the 4th book